that pool of oak as the sun was setting o'er the bright May meadows
took a stand.
of
When Martin McGuinness was a very young man in his 20s on the streets of Derry in 1968, he found himself part of an establishment and living in a state that denied his Irishness, that denied his identity, that denied his culture, that oppressed him, oppressed his family, oppressed his community, oppressed his city. And Martin McGuinness was one of thousands of young people at that time who took part in the civil rights. Martin McGuinness and people like him who delivered first-class citizenship to nationalists in the north of Ireland. And that's why Martin McGuinness will make a first-class president of this country. And if Martin McGuinness is elected as President of Ireland, he will be President of all 32 countries.
Freshen is more an Nordum Fain, a Vehanan, and Dawn shot a lave de 14. And Tanamatar and Dawn na the rebel, better will Atna giver and Dawn shot, the rebel escrive Parig ma Pirish. Now, so Dawn shot, ta Pierce a kind being wet with the tears of children. I have yearned with old wistful men and laughed and cursed with young men.
My son Sean was born in the year 2000. On the start of the new millennium, but you would have thought he was born in the dark ages the way the state decided to treat him. He was born with autism and he was diagnosed at the age of 2 or 3, and having a child with disability is a hard thing to come to terms with, but it is something that families do come to terms with. It's a natural part of life, and families the length and breadth of the country do deal with it. The problems arise when you try to actually ask from the state what your children are entitled to.
Well, G. Galer agus Tafalcherov. First of all, I want to thank everybody that was involved in making this event possible this evening. It's absolutely wonderful to be in Wexford. So ta achas morum Vain Shaw live enough. I've spoken at many famous places all around the world. In the White House, the State Department, front of government buildings in Dublin, the front of 10 Downing Street, front of Parliament buildings in Belfast, front of Stormont Castle with American presidents. But it's always great to come and speak among your own. And what an honour you do me by turning out in such huge numbers this evening. A Friday evening when many people after a hard week at work want to go home and put their feet up instead of listening to politicians speaking. And I really, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank everybody for coming along this evening. Before I came here, I went to South East Radio and was interviewed by Alan Corcoran for Monday morning's show. And he started off by saying, tell us about the real Martin McGuinness. You probably heard enough from others over the course of the last couple of weeks. So I told him my story, and my story began in 1950 when I was born in Derry City into a family of 6 boys and 1 girl. Derry had changed forever, and Derry was never going to be the same again. And we as a people were never going to be the same again. So I joined the IRA, and some people are offended that I joined the IRA. Gay Mitchell said, well, Dana didn't join the IRA. Around the time of the introduction of internment, I got to know my wife. We'll be married 37 years this November. And we were brought together by a mutual friend of ours, Colin Keenan. Colin was about the same age as Bernie, but he was about a year and a half younger than me. And Colin used to dress like a Bay City roller, that's what I would always say to him. But Colin was mad to get Bernie and I to go out together, because he was my friend and he was her friend, and he thought we would have made a good couple. And Colin was shot dead by the British Army, walking down the street after a night out on the town, and he was dressed like a Bay City roller. And Eugene McGillan was along with him, and he too was shot dead by the Blues and Royals Regiment, who came into the Bogside. And people wonder why I joined the IRA. I mean, what other choice had young people at that time? And there's been a big focus on that in the course of this election, as if somebody introduced a new rule that if you were a former member of the IRA, you couldn't take up residence in Arsenal. Of course, nobody ever done that before. And you could never be Taoiseach either, or a government minister. And indeed, a bit of soul searching was done in relation to people who are presently ministers and who were previously associated with all sorts of fancy names, like official Sinn Féin and the Workers' Party. At least I was part of a process that got the IRA to put their arms beyond use. And maybe that question needs to be asked of some others in relation to organisations that they were previously associated with, who are not receiving the same scrutiny as I'm receiving at this time. I thought about it very carefully. I didn't jump into it. I actually thought about it when I was in the United States with Peter Robinson for a week, and decided on a number of counts that this was something that I should do. The dire state of the economy here, a place that's totally lacking in leadership, in my view, a place where selfishness and greed has taken over, and indeed, to an extent, corruption also. Huge awards of salaries, bonuses, pensions. The money that was poured, the billions that was poured down the drain into banks that betrayed the people of Ireland. When I think of Keane and what he is going through, and others who have concerns about the health service, about the education system, you know, what a pity it is that we've had this ridiculous situation where people who were in hugely important positions of power were some of the most unpatriotic people that ever set foot